Welcome to the Afro-K Storyverse, where African fire meets Korean steel. Power is never given, it's taken, and the woman they underestimated always wins. Settle in, because this story will move you.
They say a secret is a spark, but in this room, it was a gallon of gasoline. I watched him for 3 months. The man who was destroying my neighborhood, Kang Junho. He looked like a king, but as I leaned in to whisper into his ear, I realized he was actually the prey. I didn't do it because I liked him. I did it because his fiancée was about to do something so cold. It made his crimes look like child's play. The air in the Gilded Rose was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the suffocating weight of forever. Kang Junho sat there, his neck tattoos hidden by a silk collar, looking every bit the man who owned the horizon. Across from him, Lee Hana was a vision in red, a masterpiece of grace and hidden daggers. She was smiling, but her thumb was flying across her phone, sending the final coordinates for his ruin. I was just the waitress, the girl with the water pitcher and the legal notebooks hidden in my locker. But I knew something Junho didn't. I knew that by dessert. His entire world would belong to the woman he was about to call his wife. Being a waitress at the Gilded Rose isn't about serving food. It's about being a ghost. In this place, the elite talk as if the walls don't have ears and the staff doesn't have brains. But I have both. My name is Sarah Adebio, and while I'm carrying trays of $200 Wagyu, my mind is back in Harlem, back at the community center that's being gutted by Kang Development Holdings. I'm not here for the tips. I'm a third-year law student, and I've spent the last 6 months documenting every illegal displacement, every unfortunate fire, and every forged signature used to push my neighbors out of their homes. My target, Kang Junho. He's the architect of the gentrification killing my soul. He's cold, calculated, and carries himself with the quiet confidence of a man who's never been told no. But tonight, something feels off. I've been watching him and his fiancée, Lee Hana, for weeks. Tonight is their pre-merger dinner, the night before they sign the papers that combine their 2 multi-billion-dollar firms. To the rest of the room, they look like the ultimate power couple, but from my vantage point near the service station, I see the cracks. Hana is wearing a dress the color of fresh blood, and she hasn't looked Junho in the eye once. Her phone is constantly buzzing, tucked just out of his sight, while he's talking about legacy and the future of the skyline. Her thumbs are moving with a frantic, almost desperate energy. I've seen that look before. It's the look of someone finishing a heist. I'd spent months hatting Junho, wanting to be the one to bring him down, but then, as I walked past their table to refill the sparkling water, I caught a glimpse of Hana's screen. It wasn't a text to a friend or a wedding planner. It was an encrypted file transfer to an assistant U.S. attorney. The header read, KJH evidence of racketeering and fraud. My heart stopped. She wasn't just marrying him. She was setting him up to be the fall guy for every single dirty deal their companies had ever done. Once the merger was signed, he'd be in a cell, and she'd be the sole owner of a clean, undisputed empire. I looked at Junho. For the first time, I didn't see a monster. I saw a man sitting on a landmine, and the woman he loved was about to tell him to jump. The luxury of the restaurant felt like it was closing in on me. I stood by the wine decanter, my hands shaking slightly. Lee Hana was a masterpiece of deception. She laughed at something Junho said. A light, melodic sound that felt entirely hollow. She reached across the table and touched his hand, and I saw Junho's shoulders relax for just a second. That was the most dangerous part. He actually trusted her. In his world, trust is a currency more valuable than gold, and he'd given her all of his. The Brooklyn project is finalized, Junho said, his voice low and gravelly. By tomorrow, our names will be on every deed from here to the bridge. Hana smiled, a slow, predatory curve of the lips. Our names, yes, it's a weight off my shoulders. Junho, I'm glad we're finally consolidating everything. No more loose ends. No more loose ends. She meant him. I looked down at the water pitcher in my hand. I had a choice. I could walk away. Let the mobster get what was coming to him. If Junho went to prison, the development projects would stall. My neighborhood might be saved by the sheer chaos of the legal battle. It was everything I'd been working for. Right. But then I thought about the files I saw. Hana wasn't just turning him in. She was framing him for things she had signed off on. She was a predator, one far more ruthless than Junho, because she operated in the light while he stayed in the shadows if she took over. She wouldn't just displace families, she'd erase them. She had no code, no sense of the neighborhood, only the bottom line. Junho leaned back, a rare, genuine smile touching his face. He looked satisfied. He thought he was winning. He had no idea that the FBI was likely sitting in a black SUV 3 blocks away, just waiting for Hana's final signal. I realized then that justice isn't always about the bad guy losing. Sometimes, it's about making sure the worst person doesn't win. I took a deep breath, adjusted my apron, and stepped toward the table. Hana's eyes flicked to me for a split second, a look of pure, elitist annoyance. She dismissed me as the help before I even arrived. That was her first mistake. The walk to the table felt like it took hours. My shoes clicked against the marble floor. A rhythmic countdown to a decision I couldn't take back. I reached for Junho's glass, my hand steadying as the adrenaline kicked in. Hana was busy again, her phone hidden in her lap. "More water, sir," I asked, my voice as neutral as I could make it. Junho didn't even look up, he just nodded. His mind clearly on the victory tomorrow would bring. I leaned in, closer than a waitress ever should. I could smell his expensive cologne, and the faint scent of Hana's metallic, sharp perfume. I tilted the pitcher, and as the water hit the glass, I lowered my head. "Don't react," I whispered, my voice barely a breath against his ear. "Your fiancé is sending your private ledger to the feds. Right now, check the CloudSync logs on your shared server. She's making you the ghost, and herself the queen." I felt him freeze. It was subtle, a tightening of his jaw, a sudden, total stillness in his frame. Hana looked up, her eyes narrowing. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her voice like silk over a razor blade. I straightened up immediately, tucking the pitcher under my arm. "Not at all. Ma'am, just making sure the gentleman's glass is full. Enjoy your dessert." I turned and walked away, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it might break. I didn't look back. I headed straight for the kitchen, through the swinging doors, and didn't stop until I was in the employee locker room. I grabbed my bag, my legal notebooks, and my coat. I knew I couldn't stay, if Junha believed me. The night was about to turn into a war zone. If he didn't, I was just a crazy waitress who'd lose her job and likely her safety. I slipped out the back exit, the cool New York air hitting my face. I walked 2 blocks, then 3, before I finally stopped and leaned against a brick wall. My hands were finally shaking. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed, an unknown number. "Who are you, and how do you know about the CloudSync?" It was him. The game had changed. I wasn't just an observer anymore. I was an accomplice, and for the first time in my life, I was terrified of what the justice I'd been seeking was going to look like. The neon sign of the 24-hour diner flickered, casting a harsh, rhythmic light over the cracked vinyl booth. I sat in the far corner, away from the windows, gripping a mug of lukewarm coffee as if it were a lifeline. I had chosen this place because it was the polar opposite of the Gilded Rose. There were no silk ties here, only the smell of old grease and the low hum of a refrigerator that had seen better decades. When the door chimes rang, I didn't have to look up to know it was him. The air in the room simply shifted. Kung Junha walked in, still wearing his tailored suit, but he had discarded the tie. The collar of his shirt was open, revealing the jagged edges of the ink on his neck. He looked less like a corporate titan and more like the man the tabloids feared. He slid into the booth across from me, his movements heavy with a controlled, dangerous energy. He didn't say anything at first. He just stared at me, his dark eyes searching my face for a lie, a motive, a trap. "You're Sarah Udaba," he said, his voice a low vibration that seemed to rattle the sugar shaker on the table. "Third-year law student, top of your class. You've been filing injunctions against my construction sites for months." I didn't flinch. "So you know who I am. That saves us some time." "It makes me wonder why you'd help me," he countered, leaning forward. "I checked the logs. You were right. Hana has been mirroring my data for weeks. She's created a shadow ledger, One where my digital signature is on every offshore transfer and every less than legal payment. By tomorrow morning, she'd have handed me over in a silver box. I didn't do it for you, Junha, I said, leaning in to match his intensity. I did it because Hana is a sociopath. If you go down, she takes everything. She doesn't have the unwritten rules you do. She'll bulldoze my neighborhood without a second thought just to see the stock price jump a fraction of a percent. You're the devil I know. She's the one I can't predict. Junha leaned back, a grim shadow of a smile appearing. Honesty, I haven't had much of that lately. My fiancée, the woman I was supposed to merge my life with, has been sleeping with a wire under her pillow. My legal team is already compromised. They're on her payroll. I have 12 hours before the merger meeting. 12 hours before she pulls the trigger. You need a lawyer who isn't on the payroll, I whispered, sliding my legal notebook across the table. And I need a developer who actually listens to the community. You want to survive, you're going to have to do something you've never done. You're going to have to play by the rules to break her trap. He looked at the notebook, then back at me. You're suggesting a partnership between the man who's destroying your home and the girl who wants to put him in a cage. I'm suggesting we both survive, I replied. I have the evidence of her fraud, but I need your access to get the final proof. We dismantle her, or we both lose everything. He reached out, his large, tattooed hand hovering over the notebook before finally gripping it. Tell me your plan, Sarah. The penthouse felt like a tomb. Junha had let me in through the service elevator, bypassing the security cameras that Hana likely monitored from her own apartment across the hall. It was 3 a.m, the hour when the city's pulse slows down, and the monsters come out to do their paperwork. She keeps her personal laptop in the safe, Junha whispered, pointing toward a sleek, recessed panel in the wall of his study. But the encryption is biometrically locked. I can't get in without her thumbprint. We don't need the laptop, I said, pulling a specialized scanner from my bag. We need the physical trail, no matter how digital she is. Hana is old school when it comes to her true insurance policies. She'll have hard copies of the forged signatures, the ones she used to frame you. She needs them in case her digital files are ever wiped. We began to tear the room apart, not with chaos, but with surgical precision. Junha moved through the files like a man possessed. He was seeing his life's work through a new lens, realizing that every win he thought he'd shared with Hana was actually a brick in his own prison wall. Here, he muttered, pulling a false bottom out of a mahogany filing cabinet. He pulled out a thick, blue folder. I opened it, and my breath hitched. It was all there, the original contracts for the Harlem project, the ones I had been fighting. But these weren't the versions filed with the city. These documents showed that Hana had been skimming off the top, diverted funds meant for community relocation into a private account in the Cayman Islands. She hadn't just been gentrifying. She'd been stealing from the very people she claimed to be helping through her charity foundations. She's been using your name to authorize the fund transfers, I said, pointing to a signature. But look at the slant of the J. It's a perfect forgery, but it's too perfect. A machine did this. Junha gripped the edge of the desk, his knuckles turning white. She didn't just want the company. She wanted me to rot. She wanted the world to see me as the man who stole from the poor while she played the grieving, betrayed fiancée. Suddenly, the sound of a key turning in the front door echoed through the silent penthouse. We froze. Hana wasn't supposed to be here until the morning. Hide, Junha commanded, his voice a sharp, silent whip. I ducked behind the heavy velvet curtains, pressing my back against the cold glass of the floor-to-ceiling window. Through the crack in the fabric, I saw her. Lee Hana walked in, still wearing her red dress from dinner, but she looked different. The mask of the elegant bride was gone. She looked exhausted, frustrated, and dangerous. She walked straight to the desk, her eyes scanning the room. She picked up a glass, swirled the dregs of a drink, and then stopped. Her gaze landed on the blue folder, which was sitting just an inch away from where it had been hidden. She knew. The silence in the room was so heavy I was afraid she could hear my heartbeat through the curtains. Hana stood perfectly still, her eyes locked on that blue folder. She didn't scream. She didn't call for help. Instead, She smiled. It was a cold, terrifying expression that sent a shiver down my spine. "Junho," she called out, her voice honey-sweet and dripping with false affection. "I know you're awake. Darling, I saw your car downstairs." Junho stepped out from the shadows of the hallway, his face a mask of bored indifference. "I couldn't sleep, thinking about tomorrow. What are you doing here? Hana, I thought you were at your mother." She walked toward him, her heels clicking like a metronome on the hardwood. "I missed you, and I wanted to make sure we were on the same page. You seem tense." She reached out, running a finger along his jawline, right over the ink on his neck. "Is it the waitress? I saw the way she whispered to you tonight. It was unprofessional." "She was just clumsy with the water," Junho said, his voice steady. "I gave her a stern word, nothing more." Hana's eyes flicked to the curtain where I was hiding. My blood turned to ice. "Is that so? Because I checked the staff records after I left. Sarah Adebio, quite the resume for a clumsy waitress. Law student, activist, thorn in our side. Why would a girl like that be serving us dinner? Unless she had a very specific reason to be there." She took a step toward the window. "And why would my husband-to-be be sitting in the dark with a folder that belongs in my private safe?" Junho moved, intercepting her with a grace that was almost predatory. He wrapped an arm around her waist, pulling her close in a mockery of a romantic embrace. "You're paranoid. Hana, maybe it's the wedding jitters. Or maybe you're worried I've found out about your little project with the assistant U.S. attorney." The air left the room. Hana's body went rigid in his arms. The game was out in the open now, the masks discarded on the floor. "You think you've won because you found a few papers," Hana hissed, her voice dropping the sweetness. "By 9:00 a.m. tomorrow, those papers won't matter. The merger will be signed. The digital transfers will be irreversible, and you'll be in handcuffs before you can even say, 'I do.' You have no one. Junho, who is going to believe you? A mobster and a girl from the streets against the darling of Manhattan real estate." "I don't need the world to believe me," Junho whispered, his face inches from hers. "I just need you to be arrogant enough to think I'm playing the same game as you. I'm not playing for the company anymore. Hana, I'm playing for the exit." He shoved her back, not with violence, but with a cold, final dismissal. "Get out, I'll see you at the gala. Make sure you wear your best mask. It's going to be a long night." Hana stared at him, her eyes burning with a silent, lethal promise. She turned and walked out, slamming the door behind her. I stepped out from behind the curtain, my legs feeling like lead. "She's going to move up the timeline," I said. "She won't wait for the gala." "I know," Junho said, turning to look at me. "Which means we have exactly 4 hours to burn her world to the ground. Are you ready, counselor?" The grand ballroom of the Pier Hotel was a sea of shimmering silk, expensive champagne, and the kind of high society laughter that sounds like breaking glass. This was the Gala of Masks, the final celebration before the merger that would redefine the city's skyline. Every major player in Manhattan was here, and hidden among them were the federal agents Hana had been grooming for months. I wasn't in a waitress uniform tonight. Thanks to Junho's resources, I was wearing a floor-length emerald gown that made me feel like a stranger in my own skin. My hair was swept up, and my date was a burner phone and a hidden microphone tucked into my clutch. I moved through the crowd, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm. I wasn't just a law student anymore. I was the silent partner in a heist where the prize was a man's freedom and a community's future. I spotted Hana across the room. She was a vision in white, a mock bridal tribute, surrounded by investors and politicians. She looked triumphant, a queen ascending her throne. She had no idea that Junho wasn't in his office signing the final papers. He was in the security room downstairs, working with the one person Hana had overlooked, the head of hotel security, a man whose family had been saved by Junho's father decades ago. "The signal is live," Junho's voice crackled in my earpiece. "Sarah, you have to get her to the terrace. She needs to admit to the forgery on tape. The feds are listening, but they need a confession to pivot the investigation from me to her." I took a deep breath, smoothed my dress, and walked straight toward the woman who wanted to destroy my world. I didn't hesitate. I walked right into her circle and tapped her on the shoulder. Hana turned, her smile faltering as she recognized me. "You," she hissed, her eyes scanning the room for security. "You have a lot of nerve showing your face here. I should have had you removed the moment you stepped inside." "You could," I said, leaning in close so only she could hear. "But then you'd never know where Junho hidden the original ledger, the real one, the one with your thumbprints on the physical pages. He gave it to me for safekeeping. If I don't check in with him in 5 minutes, it goes straight to the district attorney." Hana's face went pale, a flicker of genuine fear crossing her eyes before she masked it with rage. She looked at her guests, then back at me. "The terrace, now." We walked out into the cool night air, the city lights twinkling like indifferent diamonds below us. The terrace was empty, shielded by heavy stone pillars. "Where is it?" she demanded, her voice a sharp, jagged edge. "Give me the ledger, and I might let you walk away from this with your life." "Why did you do it, Hana?" I asked, my voice trembling just enough to make her feel superior. "He loved you. He was going to give you half of everything." Hana laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "Half? I don't want half. I've been doing the heavy lifting for years, cleaning up his messes, signing the papers he was too noble to touch. I forged those signatures because I earned that money. He was a relic, a mobster playing at being a businessman. I'm the future. And as for the ledger, it doesn't matter. By the time anyone looks at it, I'll be the victim of a tragic, unstable fiancé." She stepped closer, her eyes dark with malice. "You think you're a hero, Sarah. You're just a girl who got in the way of progress." I looked at her and smiled, a real, genuine smile. "I'm not a hero, Hana. I'm a witness." I reached into my clutch and turned off the transmitter. "And you just talked yourself into a life sentence." The silence that followed was broken by the sound of heavy doors swinging open. But it wasn't Junho who stepped out. It was a man in a dark suit with a gold badge pinned to his lapel, followed by 4 others. Assistant U.S. Attorney Miller, the very man Hana had been feeding evidence to. Hana's face went from arrogance to total, bone-chilling shock. "Agent Miller, what is the meaning of this? This girl is a harasser. She's been threatening me." "Save it, Ms. Lee," Miller said, his voice dry and professional. "We've been listening to the entire conversation. We also just received a very interesting delivery at the field office. It seems your private server wasn't as secure as you thought. Mr. Kang provided us with the decryption keys an hour ago. We've spent the last 60 minutes looking at your real-time data mirroring and the evidence of your skimming operations." Hana spun around, looking for an exit, but Junho was standing in the doorway. He looked calm, almost bored, but there was a fire in his eyes that I'd never seen before. "You tried to play a game of shadows with a man who was born in them, Hana," Junho said, walking toward her. "I told you, I wasn't playing for the company, I was playing for the exit." "You're going down with me," Hana screamed, her voice cracking. "I have your signatures, I have the Brooklyn deals." "Actually," I stepped forward, pulling a legal document from my clutch. "As of 4 hours ago, those deals were nullified. Junho signed a voluntary disclosure agreement. He's turned over the development rights to a community land trust, and he's admitted to the corporate oversights. He'll face a fine, maybe some probation, but you're the one who committed the wire fraud, the identity theft, and the embezzlement." Hana looked between us, the realization finally hitting her. She hadn't just lost the merger, she had lost everything. The innocent fiancé was gone, replaced by a woman whose greed had left a digital and physical paper trail a mile long. As the agent stepped forward to cuff her, she looked at me with a hatred so pure it was almost physical. "You ruined it, for a few blocks of crumbling brick and poor people." "No," I said, watching as they led her away. "I saved it for the people who actually live there." Junho stood by the railing, looking out over the city. He didn't look like a boss anymore. He looked like a man who had just put down a weight he'd been carrying for a lifetime. "What happens now?" I asked, walking over to stand beside him. "Now, the real work begins," he said, looking at me. "The company is in shambles. The board will be in a panic. I have to dismantle the empire piece by piece to pay back the city. It's going to be a legal nightmare." "Well," I said, a small, tired smile playing on my lips. I hear you're going to need a very good lawyer, one who doesn't mind getting her hands dirty for the right reasons. 6 months later, the Harlem Community Center didn't look like a construction site. It looked like a home. The scaffolding was down, and the new glass windows reflected the vibrant, busy street below. There were no luxury condos coming soon signs. Instead, there was a plaque that read, "Owned by the community, for the community." I sat on the front steps, my law school graduation robes feeling heavy and warm in the spring sun. I had passed the bar, and my first official act was to sign the deed as the legal representative for the land trust. A sleek, black car pulled up to the curb. It wasn't the armored SUV Junho used to drive. It was a modest sedan, something that didn't scream power. Junho stepped out, wearing a casual sweater and jeans. He looked younger, the tension in his face replaced by a quiet, steady peace. He had lost the skyscraper, the penthouse, and the billion-dollar reputation. He'd spent the last few months in and out of courtrooms, settling the lawsuits and ensuring the families displaced by his former firm were compensated. He was no longer the mob boss. He was just a man trying to balance the scales. "You're late for the opening ceremony," I teased, standing up to meet him. "The board of directors for the new housing project had some spirited notes," he said, a genuine laugh escaping his lips. "It turns out, when you give people a voice, they actually use it. It's a lot harder than just giving orders." "That's called democracy, Junho. Get used to it." He looked up at the building, then back at me. "I never thanked you. Not properly. You could have let her destroy me. You would have been justified." "I didn't do it to save you," I reminded him, though we both knew that wasn't entirely true anymore. "I did it because the truth mattered, and because I saw something in you that you were trying very hard to hide." "And what was that?" "A conscience," I said, reaching out to touch his arm, "even if it was buried under 3 layers of silk and a lot of bad decisions." The professional boundaries that had once defined us had blurred into something deeper, something built on the wreckage of our old lives. We weren't a merger of empires. We were a partnership of equals. Junho looked down at the street, at the kids playing on the sidewalk and the neighbors talking over fences. "It's a different kind of horizon," he mused. "Smaller, but I can finally see the ground." "It's a better view," I agreed. As we walked together into the community center, I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still debts to pay and reputations to rebuild. But for the first time, the secret wasn't a spark of gasoline. It was the foundation of something real, something honest, and something that finally felt like home.
That was the Afro-K story verse, where every story is a world, and every world changes you. If this one stayed with you, subscribe and hit the bell. A brand new story drops next week, and trust me, you don't want to miss it.